Okay, everyone. Super excited to chat today. My name is Kayla Carrillo. I'm one of the career advisors on the team. Recently joined, I've been here about 4 months. So I'm super excited to have my first workshop on my own. I'm joined today by our panelists Shelby and Janine, who are going to be talking in a little bit later. Sorry about that. I need to admit people. Um, so I'm gonna firstly be kind of going over the conversation of what it is you need to prepare for when it comes to, starting this internship search process and learning how to navigate the different aspects of it. So I will be sort of going over a general agenda of our time today. So again, we just went over introductions very briefly. Shelby and Ginny are going to have time to have more in-depth discussion or have in-depth discussion later. Um, we're going to be going over briefly what kind of are internships and what you need to prepare for in terms of applying for things and making sure that you know how to navigate like the interview process and all these different things as well. Thirdly, we were going to be going over the 4 credit internship registration process for any of you who are interested in maybe registering their internship for credit this term or for future terms. Um, Again, we're going to be closing in with our panelist discussion with Shelby and Ginny, and then having a Q&A with if any of you have any questions for them specifically or questions about the internship registration process. And that will be it for today. So in terms of internships, um, overall, I like to think of internships as an experiential learning opportunity for those that are interested in learning about what it means to be a creative in like a professional space. A lot of the times when we think about being a student is learning your craft, but it's very different in terms of being an actual professional within a working space. Um, so I think overall, there are different aspects that I think are really useful when we're thinking about why you should intern. So firstly, I think one of the main things is like being able to assess what you want. So maybe it's identifying that you want to work maybe as a freelancer right after graduation or as a freelancer now as a current student. Um, so really honing in on what works for you in terms of you as a person or and also you as a professional. Another sort of aspect or like positive about being an intern is being able to grow your network and your contacts. Being able to utilize your skill set and gain experience within your field. And again, learn what it means to be a creative within a professional space. In terms of when we think about you need a plan and things to be proactively thinking about when it comes to applying for things, applying for internships, applying for jobs, is knowing how to search for opportunities. Um, Being able to prepare your application materials ahead of time, being able to track your applications. I feel like that's something that a lot of people tend to forget about. Like they mass apply for things, and it could easily kind of get lost in the shuffle of things that you're trying to get an opportunity for, but it might just overall like you kind of lose track of it. So being able to make sure that you're tracking your applications is really important as well. Um, Lastly is like interviewing. That's just one thing I feel like a lot of people tend to struggle with is this idea of being able to speak about your work in a way that is useful for you to be able to land an opportunity. So these are overall things that we're going to address in our next slide in this sort of like visual presentation of like internship timeline, the way I like to think about it. So, one of the main things that I feel like is important is the preparation phase of this sort of timeline. Is thinking about meeting with a career advisor, meeting with a faculty member, meeting with anyone that you feel like has an expert opinion on the creative industry that you're going into. Um, what it means to prepare your application materials. So the 3 things that I feel like are super, super important to make sure that you're really focusing in on is your resume, your cover letter, and your portfolio website. Um, And also during this phase of preparation is making sure you're connecting with people, whether that be your faculty, your current peers at Art Center, or recruiters. Secondly, this sort of search and apply phase is like researching companies. So a lot of companies tend to have like maybe their own careers page. So maybe making sure that you're also looking on those pages as well. Looking on different job boards. LinkedIn is obviously a big one. Um, Art Center Connect, Indeed, all these other really big names as well. Um, and also continuing this process of reaching out to people, networking, and try to gain your community. Thirdly, when we think about interviewing and receiving this offer, is making sure that you're actively practicing mock interviews, or just even thinking about specific questions that you need to prepare for when it comes to ideal or general questions that people would ask you. Um, so this is something the career team could definitely help support you in terms of being able to articulate your design process or just being able to kind of, engage in like a typical answer of like, tell me about yourself. Um, so obviously like that second piece is obviously like interviewing with the company, and receiving your offer. For those that are interested in getting their internship for credit registered, when we think about you preparing for this is like meeting with your faculty ahead of time to develop your learning objectives, gathering your necessary materials uh, to start or to apply on Connect. So the three main things that we often ask for this process is your offer letter, your degree audit, and for those that are studying on F1 visa, the I-20 with CPT authorization, and making sure that you have your student signature. Um, Lastly, is this sort of like reflection and repeat phase of thinking about what went well and what didn't go well. What we needed to kind of hone in on, that we need to improve on or potentially continue the process of doing. So maybe that's like continuing to network, like networking went really well for you and helped you gain internship experience, or just overall making sure that you're continuing the process of building connections. You're utilizing your arts in our community, especially now as a current student. I think this is like the best time to make sure that you're really gaining as many contacts as possible. And then lastly, leading into this, like preparing, search, apply, interview, and receive offer, sort of this repeat cycle. So this is something I feel like is useful, like an overall visual representation of like sort of this internship timeline. Um, so we are going to be moving on to our third sort of phase of our agenda today, which is the 4 credit internship process. Both of our panelists did just complete an internship this past term, both of which also got their internship registered for credit. So they do have a testimony on like what that experience has been like for them. I will be asking them questions about that in a little bit. For general overview, students are eligible to get internship for credit that are undergrads with a minimum of 70 units and a minimum of 2.5 GPA. Graduate students, a minimum of 30 units with a minimum of 3.0 GPA. And again, international students who are studying on F1 need to have gotten their internship registered with International Student Services. In terms of the criteria of what an internship for credit needs to look like, it needs to be a minimum of 10 weeks, and those 10 weeks must fall within the 14-week term. Uh, and you could only register your internship for credit for either 3 or 6 credits. So those are just the overall things to be aware of. Lastly, and then we will be moving on to our panelist discussion, is this internship term FAQ of like general things to be aware of. So for those that are interested in registering their internship for credit, the deadline is due this Friday, week 1, end of day. Your grading requirements are due Friday, week 13. If needed, you could always engage in conversation with a career advisor for support during your internship process. And then just general notes to know is that your tuition will be charged per unit of credit that is earned, and internships are earned on a satisfactory or unsatisfactory basis. I know that was a lot of information, so we are going to be moving on to our panelist discussion. Um, I know our panelists I briefly introduced them, but I will go ahead and really give them the reins of this conversation moving forward. I will be asking them questions, but if Shelby, if you could start with, your name, your department, degree, current term, company name, and then how did you find this internship?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Hope you're having a great first week. My name is Shelby. I'm a graphic design major and I'm currently in my eighth term. I interned at John Paul Mitchell Systems this past fall, and I found the internship through one of the faculty members, actually. I'll go a little bit more into detail about it later, but she basically emailed me and was able to introduce me to the creative team at John Paul Mitchell Systems, and I'll talk more about it later. But yeah.
Shelby. Jinyi, can you introduce yourself, please? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hi everyone. My name is Xing Yi. I'm in entertainment design department. I'm in concept track. I'm currently term six. So during last fall, I interned at Universal Creative in Orlando. So I went all the way there to Florida. And how did I find this internship? I applied through LinkedIn. So they posted like jobs on LinkedIn and I just applied. Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderful. So our first question for this panelist discussion part is if you could both go a little bit more into depth on like what the internship application process looked like for you, specifically how many internships did you apply for before you got your actual internship? We could start with either Shelby or Jimmy, whatever, whoever likes to go first.
I can start. Um, so my application process was a little different since I was able to be personally introduced by one of the faculty members in graphic design. But previously I had applied to, I think, like around 50 internships. I know that's a lot, but you have to do it. Um yeah, like I started applying around beginning of summertime, just for general internships, and then I was able to land one for the summertime, and then for towards the end, I got an email about the John Paul Mitchell Systems internship, and I started applying towards like end of summer, beginning of fall.
For me, for the fall, I applied for about like 3 to 4 internships. But previously I was applying to at least like 10 or like 15 per month. Yeah. And for my interview process, it was kind of different because I went through the HR interview first, and then I went for the first round of interview with my supervisor. And then I told my professor about it, that I'm in the interview process. And then he emailed my supervisor because apparently my supervisor used to teach at our center. So then I got the third interview with him again. And then I got the job after. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a big, at least Virginia, there's a huge networking piece that went into like securing the role.
Yeah, I would say try to research about like your interviewer and see if you could know someone that knows them, or like just ask your professor for like advice and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ginny. In terms for Shelby, like what did the interview process look like for you and like how long did it take for you to hear back?
Yeah, so I first heard about the role beginning of August, and then I submitted my I filled out the application that was on Art Center Connect, and then I also sent my resume, my portfolio 3 days later, and I got introduced to the team that same day via email. And then my first interview was with the recruiter, so not with my supervisors yet. And I had that first interview 5 days later. And then that one was mainly just about like my availability and what the role looked like what my responsibilities would be. And then my second interview was a week later, and those ones were with my supervisors. And that one was more about like my actual portfolio, my strengths, my weaknesses, what I'm familiar with, what software, etc. And like what I would be like as an employee. And then after that second interview, I received my official offer letter slash call 5 days later. So overall, the whole process took about 3 weeks.
Yeah. Jeannie, would you say how long would you say your timeline was for Universal?
I applied end March or early April, and I received a interview time for in mid-April. So it was like around after like 2 to 3 weeks, and then I had the HR call, and then I think around 1 to 2 weeks later, I had an interview with my supervisor, and then after another 2 to 3 weeks, I had the third interview, and then in May I got to sign the papers. Yeah.
So I would say it's both relatively like quick turnaround processes. Um, Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I want to ask quickly about the for credit registration process, and then we'll move on to like, your actual internship experience. Um, Jeannie, we could start with you in terms of how was the process of registering your internship for credit, and then if you could also go into like what your process was of getting the CPT authorization and like how long it took for your paperwork to get processed.
I would say try to register for internship really early. I thought I already registered quite early because I was registering for it around August because it was a fall internship around July, end of July, August. But it was still pretty late because I think there was some problems within the school office, and also it took time for the school to contact Universal, and then it took around like 1.5 months to get the credit registration done. And as for my CPT, it was really quick. It was just like a day or 2 days. Yeah.
So relatively quick for the CPT.
Yeah.
Good to know. Shelby, if you could share a little bit about your process for registering your internship for credit.
Yeah, I'm not an international student, so I don't have exactly the same experience, but I would say like, yeah, try to do it as quickly as you can. Luckily with John Paul Mitchell systems, I think they're like familiar with having a lot of art center interns, so they already had the document signed like by my supervisor and everything. The only issue I ran into was when I tried to like submit the document, they said it can't come from me, it has to come from my supervisor. So I'll just make sure everything gets completed as soon as you can if you're trying to register for credit. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. One thing I'll quickly know in terms of those that are interested in registering your internship for credit, part of the approval process is our department sending your supervisor an employer agreement. So that's something that we need to get sent back before we could start the approval process. So it does take some time for the supervisor to get back to us about that. So there could be delays in terms of the approval because of that. So that's why it's really important to make sure you start the process as soon as possible. Um, but thank you both for sharing sort of your experience with for the for credit registration. So now we'll be moving on to, what your time was like as an intern within your respective company. So we could go into a little bit about like what did a typical day look like for you as an intern at your company? We could start with Shelby.
Yeah, so when I was hired, my official title was creative intern at JPMS. But I was mainly working on a lot of packaging stuff, which is great because that's my track as a graphic design major. So most of my tasks were a lot of like concept ideas. So I would start off with like mood boards and then I would present those to my supervisor and then I would, you know, choose some that would work the best and then make some comps out of those ideas and then present again and then revise, present again. And it was just like constantly revising and presenting until I like finished the task. But it was like beyond packaging, I also got to help out with like some photo shoot assets, and also like um pro inclusions for their products. So even though I did have like different tasks, like different uh subject matters, like it was still kind of the same process, just like presenting, revising, presenting, revising.
Awesome. Thank you.
So for me, my title at Universal is concept design intern. So I think because Universal it's a big company, so they have like a um, internship program for everybody. So there is like a huge intake of interns, and we have like orientations. We go to the parks, we visit the parks, and they have people introduce us. So we kind of get to know more about theme parks, and also my typical day, maybe I will go to work at like 8 or 9, and then I'll be given an assignment that day. It can be like painting or storyboards or designs. I also did like a model painting there as well. So I did try out a lot of things. And during the day, maybe somebody in my team will give me some feedback and I will work on it and try to hand in the assignment by the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. I guess like a follow-up to that would be, it seems like a lot of it is like getting assignments and working on whatever it is that you were tasked with. What did like the collaboration look like in terms of like your supervisor's feedback? And how did you kind of like navigate that?
I would say it depends on the supervisor because supervisors are really busy. So for me, I would have to ask him specifically like what kind of feedback I can get. And also I could ask people in my team or like just talk to anyone else in the office and just try to chat with as many people as I can because towards the end of my internship, I was chatting with at least 2 to 3 person per day. Yeah.
Shelby, what about you? What did that look like for you, that process?
Yeah, so I had like one direct supervisor that I would work with, and I would, update him on my progress and he would also check in on me to see how I'm doing. But in terms of like presenting the work, it was very um like it was very normal, I feel like. Uh I did a mixture of like work from home and work on site. So like on my work from home days, I would just have like a Teams meeting with him, just like a Zoom call. And then when on the days I was in the office, I would just like sit down next to him and we would go over my work. And there were also some times where in terms of collaboration, I would get to present my ideas to other members of the creative team. So whether that was like other art directors, or other members, like other graphic designers on the creative team, and then get all of their input. So it was nice to have like kind of everyone on the same page with those collaborative reviews sessions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think this is some like in terms of me asking this is like it's partly, especially in the creative space, like there's a very close relationship with the supervisor, especially because it's like a lot of revisions and iterations of things. So I was just curious like what that sort of looked like for you guys within your company. Um, but moving on to like this idea of networking and building your community. I know Ginny, you talked about like essentially part of how you got your internship was because of your contacts, especially at Art Center. Um, so what specific, this question is for both of you, like what role do you feel like in networking played within you either landing your internship or your professional development as an intern at your company? So maybe like building network contacts within your company itself.
Yeah, so with how I it definitely played a big role in how I landed the internship, I would say. So as far as I know, I wasn't the only one that that my faculty member referred for the job. So it was me and a couple of other students, uh, and then we all got to interview, and then from there, the company decided who to hire. But it definitely played a big role because it's the faculty member who referred me was also an employee at John Paul Mitchell Systems for a very long time. She was the creative director, I believe. And you know, when I started working there, a lot of the or like most of the creative team knew who she was, and like they would, you know, uh it served as like a networking opportunity as well because like we had a mutual uh connection that we had. And yeah, I just got to it served as like a bridge for like further conversation as well. I think it definitely plays a big role. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Jeannie, did you have any other details you would want to elaborate in terms of networking, like that you gained from obviously like you landing your internship, but also skills or in terms of your professional development as an intern?
I would say it's important to identify like what's the goals of internship because typically interns don't get to do a lot of the important works. So I would say for me, internship might be more about like networking with the people in the studio and in the company. So that's something that I discovered after I did the job. So that's why I started talking to so many people and just knowing about like the different departments. What does the company do? What's the company culture? And if they could refer you to more people, and that would be great. And also, if you are interested in other departments in the future, you can also keep the connections. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. I think this is something in terms of gaining community it's so vital, especially now as a current student, everyone that's, sitting in today is making sure that you're utilizing because both of our panelists here have gotten their internships through contacts at Art Center. So making sure you're really engaging with your faculty. On these are the sort of things you're interested in and like if they have any contacts at any company that you would be interested in working at is making sure that you're engaging in those conversations and making the most out of your time here. So just going back to this idea about like being proactive. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there really quickly before we move on to our next question, which is what were the key skills you learned? So this could be like technical skills. So um, anything that you could think of that's like maybe like certain software, like you really like learned so much more about that software within your internship or soft skills. So maybe being able to like work in a team and collaborate with other people during your internship. And this is for both Shelby and Jinyi.
Yeah, in terms of technical skills, I think I would say I definitely improved on some of the software I already knew, like Photoshop, Illustrator, just like the Adobe Creative Suite. So like I use that like every day at my job. And I definitely improved because I was using it in more of a like in a more professional setting. But I also got to learn some more AI software as well. And I integrated it into my workflow. Of course, just using it as a tool and not as like the final product when designing. So I, was started to get familiar with Flora for like image generation, for example, and then becoming more familiar with like Dolly or ChatGPT for image generation as well. But again, just using that as like a tool, not like the final product. Um, and I would also say my presentation skills definitely improved. I was used to presenting my ideas either to my supervisor or a group of different creative team members, like maybe once to three times a week. So I was definitely very used to it and getting more comfortable as time went on. But I would say I definitely improved on presentation skills.
Awesome.
For me, in terms of technical skills, I would say I learned more about matte painting and also design thinking. I think most part I learned more about building theme parks and how what kind of considerations they have to take into account, like especially materials and budgeting and dimensions and stuff like that. And for soft skills, I would say like communication, because I talk to a lot of people and I would try to improve every time I have a coffee chat with someone. Like I want to ask meaningful questions and also what kind of specific advice they can give me instead of just like general stuff that they could give to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, super. I love those responses. I think one thing I take away from what you both are saying is this idea of making sure that the contacts that you're making in terms of like communication, at least like as a soft skill, is that you're leading with purpose when you engage in those conversations. And you kind of like already know what you kind of want out of that, in terms of like going into the conversation and being able to direct a specific way. So maybe that's like an introduction to another person at your company, for example. Um, so just overall is this idea of making sure that you're being intentional about any sort of skill set that you want to learn, or just be intentional overall when it comes to your career path moving forward, which I think is lovely to hear. Um, I did want to ask you both, if there were any specific projects that you supported. You don't have to necessarily go into details about the project. If you aren't able to sort of go into depth, that's totally understandable. But like anything that you felt in terms of projects that you feel like really stood out to you that you learned a lot from.
So one of the projects that really stands out to me, it's not released yet. I think it'll release in a few months, sometime early this year. But some of the assets I created were actually used like in a photo shoot and they made it into like the final cuts. So I think that one really stood out to me. I'm not sure if I can like go into detail
Yeah.
about what it is. But I think it just stood out to me because it kind of made me realize like, oh wow, something I created is like out there in the real world and it's being used and it's like proof, not yeah, it's like kind of like proof that, oh, you made something successful, made something that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelby.
I can say some things that is already released. So, there's a new Park Kids Resort that's opening in Texas. I worked on that model and also some paintings on that, and also another studio that's gonna open in London in the future. Yeah. So these are some of the more major projects that I worked on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Um, One thing that I feel like really stands out to me from Shelby specifically is this idea of seeing your work like out in the open. Well, at least like it is gonna be, right? Because it hasn't been released yet. But I think this is something that's a particular reason why we encourage people or students to engage in internships, because it's very much like a validating experience to see the work that you create like literally out in the open. And it's very validating. It makes you, I'm not a creative myself, but I feel like for the most part, I feel like people really feel a sense of pride in their work, and that it's a validating experience in a good way, and that it's useful. It's like almost a motivator for you to continue like doing your craft. So I love that for both of you. Is there any, we're starting to close off on our panelist discussion, but is there any advice you could share for those that are joining us today that are looking to intern? And this could be kind of anything you feel like comes to mind in terms of advice for that.
I feel like some of the most valuable information I gained was like actually from my exit interview with the company. Um, and I feel like a lot of people might have heard this already, but it's very important to always be confident about your work whenever you're speaking about it or whenever you're presenting any ideas, always be confident. That's something my supervisor actually mentioned. He was saying like, if you don't believe in your work, who else, like who is going to, if not you? So I would encourage everyone to, practice speaking and presenting about your work, your portfolio for an interview, and just be confident you created in what you created.
I would say it's important to set up like expectations for your internship and also knowing exactly what you want out of internship, other than just having another line on your resume, like what you specifically want to learn from that role, and you could discuss it with your supervisor early so that you would meet all of your goals by the end of the internship. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeannie and Shelby. I love both of your responses. I think it's very evident that you guys were very intentional about the way you went about your internship experience, in a way that you really gained a lot of valuable insight on like what it means to be a professional within your creative space. Um, I have one last question for Shelby because I know you are graduating soon. So congrats on that. Super exciting. Is there anything you took away from your internship search experience, process slash interview slash experience that you feel is useful as you approach, graduating and like that process of like being a post grad or an alumni?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways came from my second interview. So my first meeting with like my supervisors and about what the role, about like my work and what employee I would be like. They gave me a question like I didn't think they would ask, and they asked me how familiar I am with AI. And I I was like kind of thrown off by it. But I answered like truthfully, like, yeah, like I've used it before. And then I also mentioned my thoughts on it, like, you know, AI, like no matter what, I feel like AI is here to stay. So we as designers have to like get used to, accepting it and like even integrating it into our workflow. I can say that for graphic design at least. I'm not quite sure with other majors how it's like, but for graphic design, at least you should be like comfortable integrating it into your workflow and also uh showing employers that like you are comfortable using it and you know how to use it correctly, which is as a tool. So, whether it's like as a base for concepts, like you can build upon that or like that can be a starting point, but it should never be like I mentioned it like before, but like it shouldn't be the final product at all. It should just be something as a tool like to help make your workflow just more efficient. And so I think in my future job search, I tried, I will try to, emphasize that I know how to use the different AI software and I know how to use it correctly. And hopefully I can also integrate it into my work as I finish up my terms at Art Center. Yeah.
Awesome. Love to hear all of that. Um, One quick follow-up to that, because I feel like there's something else I wanted to for you to touch on a little bit more is um there's the discussion of like AI in terms of the job search. Like I know a lot of people use it to support like their resume writing or anything like that. Did you ever utilize AI to support within like developing your materials or anything like that?
In terms of like resume, honestly, I feel like going to the writing center is better.
Yeah.
Um, just because AI is great for a lot of things, but I think in terms of writing, it has a very specific tone with it already. And of course you want to come off as like intentional to your employers. Um, and yeah, I think when applying, it should also like come from the heart a little bit. Yeah, like just yeah, I haven't really used it for like main parts in my website or resume. I usually just go to the writing center at school and I'm really happy with how my experiences there have been.
Of that. Thank you so much, Shelby. Shout out to Writing Center, Amelia. You're awesome. Um, we always recommend students to AI could be a useful tool in terms of like a directional piece and like how to go about what you need to highlight within your, say, your resume, for example. But it's always really great for you to, write it yourself. So this is just something I was just curious about. So that closes off our panelist discussion. We're going to be moving on to our Q&A. So this is where any of you guys in the audience could ask our panelists questions or me questions about the for credit registration process. If you have any questions, you could go ahead and put them in the chat or unmute yourselves. So this is a great opportunity for anyone to ask our panelists any questions. So feel free to
I have a question.
go ahead.
Oh yeah. I want to ask like, is it possible for the panels to put the link of their website so we can see like what kinds of work they have, so we can know like what kinds of skill we need to have to get an internship.
So if Shelby or Ginny, if you are comfortable with that, I could send that in a follow-up. But we could also discuss that later if you guys would like. I
Mhm.
see.
Oh yeah, I have a website. I can drop it in the chat if you guys want to see.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Mm.
I have a question. For to register for an internship, where is the link?
For the registration process, so everything will be through Art Center Connect. I will be putting in the chat actually, um, should be the link to connect, specifically like our webpage on that. It seems like my keyboard isn't working. Um, oops, sorry about that, guys. I will be sending everyone a follow-up email later today with all of that because I am having issues with my keyboard. But everything should be on Art Center Connect, specifically if you go to artcentercc.com, you will have all of the instructions for that there.
I also have a question. Um, I guess one of my concerns when applying for internships is that I'm not a good match for whatever the company is looking for. So like whenever I search it for an internship, they'll have some requirements that I don't exactly fit. And then I guess I just keep delaying it because I don't know if I have the right skills to apply. But I match like at least 80% of it, you know.
Do any of our panel go ahead. Sorry,
Oh
go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I would say like you just, still apply. I think you definitely should because like the worst they can say is no. The worst you can get is just a rejection letter or no answer. But I don't think that should stop you. Of course, like if you like, yeah, you may only fulfill 80% of the requirements, but like what if all the other applicants fulfill like 40%? Like you might be the best one. You never know. I would just apply, of course.
Thank
Ginny, were you hoping to add something?
Oh, yeah, sorry, my Zoom just glitched. Yeah.
You're good.
What I would say, um, if because for me specifically, I would try to create pieces that aligns with the company. But if you don't have, you could try to brand yourself that way. Because for me, when I write resumes or like do website, I would try to fit. I would read the requirements and try to hit all of the keywords they have. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for answering that. We do have a couple questions in the chat. What term should we start applying for internships? I'm assuming this person's illustration entertainment track, for a better chance. Um, I'll address this question. So for the most part, what we always recommend that students apply 2 terms before their the internship term will occur. So for example, if you're hoping to do like summer 2027, you should start like preparing your materials, searching for things 2 terms before. So that would be like fall 2026. Um, Generally, companies they sometimes they have like an internship program, so it's generally recommended that you like do the research beforehand. But did you have any insight about that as well?
You mean for as in when to apply for internships?
Yeah.
I would say try to because usually like the fall internship will roll out mid like in early March and April, and for summer internship they roll out end of December or November for like big companies. So typically the time is the same. So if you could actually make sure that your website or portfolio is ready, you could just apply at those specific times. Yeah. I don't think there's like a late or like an early time to apply in art center because people here want to get job ultimately. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Um, our second question in the chat is, when applying for your internship, were they typically done either through a formal application portal or were most done through cold emailing?
For me, they were all like through an application portal or through LinkedIn, like just like job search platforms. I personally have never done cold emailing, so I can't really speak on that. But yeah, everything was through like portals and LinkedIn, Indeed, etc.
Yeah, for me too. It was done through an online portal and I found the job on LinkedIn. Yeah. But I would say check LinkedIn or like job portals as frequently as you can because I mean personally I check it every single day like a social media. So yeah.
If I could add one thing, I did put in the chat some resources that I will be sending in a follow-up email after this, but I just wanted to include this here too. One of which was our department's LinkedIn page. So I actually help support managing this. So essentially, we just repost opportunities on the job board or any like recruiter post, and just we just repost it to our job board or our LinkedIn page, excuse me. So I recommend that anyone here follows this. We're pretty diligent about making sure that we repost something at least once a day. So I'd recommend you guys take a look at that, see what's kind of out there. I just wanted to quickly, shout that out really fast. Um, we have a question from Isabel. Is it better to just do internships for credit, or what does it look like if you do internships on an off term, like over the summer? Also, as a second term student, should I wait till later terms, or are there things I could do now? Um, so I'll address some aspects of this question. So if you are hoping to do like an off term, I'm not too sure if Isabel, if you're F1 student. If you are an F1 student, you would need to contact International Student Services to make sure that you are eligible to take a light term for your visa purposes. But overall, you are able to do an internship for credit any term, fall, spring, summer. Uh, in terms of having an internship for an off term, that could look like maybe being enrolled part-time or not. We never encourage people to do full-time internship and also be enrolled. It's just not an ideal situation, so we definitely discourage that. Um, I guess our panelists could address like that second part of the question, which is as a second term student, should I wait till later terms or are there things I could do now in terms of applying for internships?
I feel like you can, oh, sorry. I feel like you can start applying now because typically so that the HR gets to know you, and also like getting them to see your portfolio and they could give you some advice, because that's what a lot of people do. They apply and get rejected, and then they apply with an improved version and remember you. Oh, this person has an improvement, and they want that person. And oh, and I can I go back to the previous question
Of course.
regarding the, because I was full time when I was interning full time.
Okay.
So because I'm international, I could only be in full term and still interning at the same time. I would not encourage that. Try to plan for international people, like try to plan such that you could take either a light term or an off term to intern. That would be great. But if you can't, try to like schedule some humanity classes instead of studios while doing that. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Jeannie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say like the same thing. Just like yeah, go ahead. You can like apply whenever, I feel like. And even if you get rejected, I feel like it's still a learning opportunity. And if you even get like an interview, that's great too, because that's also you'll also learn a lot from that and how you can improve when you apply to internships when you're upper term as well. Um, I actually wasn't a full-time intern, I was part-time. So I was doing part-time plus a light term. Oh no, plus a full term. I was doing 4 classes and then working 3 days a week. Um, and in my opinion, I feel like maybe full-time might have been a better experience. Just because like it's a lot of classes to juggle. I was doing like 3 humanities and 1 studio, and like even the humanities were like piling up. It was getting a lot. So if you can, if it's possible, I would do a full term and like no classes at school. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, full time and then no classes at school.
Yeah. Thanks, Shelby. Jeannie, those are all of the questions we have in the chat. Oh, we have one more. This will be our last question. If you apply for one company for an internship and are rejected, does that make it possible for you to apply for an internship at that company again?
Generally, no. At least I don't think so. Usually like and like sometimes even when you get rejected from a company, they'll say like, "Oh, we encourage you to apply again in the future." So like, if you get rejected once, like that's okay. You can maybe try again like in the next term, the next year. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll add another piece to that. We're always encouraged to reapply for something you got rejected for in the past. Um, Sort of like what Ginny and Shelby were talking about earlier is like this idea of like people seeing your improvement and like your persistence for trying to get, contacts at that company or just experience at that company. So that is noticed. So if you're, I would refrain from this idea of being scared to apply for something because you were rejected in the past. Um, it's just obviously something that's hard to kind of get over, but it is important for you to like be persistent, and know that it's recognized. Um, Thank you for all of the questions. We're going to be closing out because we are almost at time. Before I do that, I want to say a huge thank you to our panelists, Shelby and Ginny, for coming on and sharing their experience. They have been wonderful in the process of, planning this panel. So I just wanted to extend my huge gratitude for, for you spending your time and sharing your insights. Um, so I just wanted to quickly share some of the information about our office. If I know we have some like earlier term students, so if maybe you haven't met with any of us before, so we are now on South Campus in the 1111 building. We work remotely Monday and Friday, and we are in person, second floor, through Tuesday through Thursday. You could reach us at emails at careers at Art Center. This is our phone number and our website, and also our Instagram. We do have a number of events coming up within the next few weeks. Um, some exciting career chats, and also the extension of this like you need a plan series. So I definitely recommend you guys anyone here, also our panelists included, to continue engaging in our workshops and our spaces. So if anyone has any questions, you could definitely reach out to me or any of our team members on the Creative Careers team. Um, Again, I will be sending out an email with sort of everything we talked about in a follow-up in a little bit. But again, I want to extend my gratitude to our panelists and everyone here. So with that, I will be closing out our time together with everyone. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great rest of your term.